Paltrocast. Well, how's your day going aside from having to do media and all that?
It's actually going great because I hooked up with a friend, a new friend who runs an art gallery in Chelsea. She runs a photography gallery, and she was giving me some advice on some ideas that I had about where to go next with my paintings, and she really just was very encouraging to me. So that's really totally made my day. And and then also I love Christmas shopping because I love Christmas, so I did a little bit of that too.
Sounds like a win-win. Now, we were connected not because she put out a new album this year, which we'll plug in a little bit, but
Uh-huh.
because you have the City Winery gallery showing.
Hmm.
Runs through the end of the year, correct? Anyone can visit during daytime hours?
That's right, through the end of the year, and I think even into the end of January, they said that it'll be able to stay up that long.
Got it. So every now and then it's not surprising to find out that a great singer, and yes, I called you a great singer, is also an accomplished painter. You know, Tony Bennett was one of the first ones I realized where he might be a better painter than a singer.
Oh my goodness.
Now,
And that's
how
saying
far
something.
do you go back as a painter? When did this all start?
I mean, it's all fairly recent. I dabbled in it a little bit when I was younger, but it really was the pandemic that allowed me the opportunity, I think, and also sort of pushed me towards it because there's something that's very rewarding about singing for people, and there's this
Sure.
emotional, it feeds your emotions and it feeds your soul in a way, and not being able to do that at all, I sort of felt bereft, and I was kind of casting around for something to do, that would be creative and that I could, still do, despite the pandemic. And I had always had it in the back of my mind. I mean, I love painting. I love abstract work in particular. I'm a huge fan of people like Robert Motherwell, people like Lee Krasner, the early Georgia O'Keeffe abstractions. I've always loved that stuff. So I thought, well, maybe now is the moment that I can try doing whatever I can do in this way. And so that was really the beginning of it.
The same galleries had exhibitions by Amy Mann, Graham Nash, other greats. Again, I called you the great. You didn't call yourself that. Uh, did that play any role in you going, "Hey, City Winery is the place for me to exhibit my work"?
Well, in fact, I didn't even know that they had a gallery space. I had been making some prints of my artwork to give to family and friends as
Hmm.
gifts, and I gave one to Michael Dorf, who runs the City Winery, and he said, "Hey, this is really cool. Do you have more of these? Would you like to do a show in our gallery space?" And then they, gave me a tour of it. And at that moment, I think the Graham Nash show of his photographs was hanging, and I honestly had no idea, so I didn't approach them. They just approached me, and at that point I wasn't really even thinking so much about exhibiting the stuff, but that really pushed me to make more work and to get myself ready, to do that.
Hmm. Now, Michael Dorf, of course, is synonymous with City Winery, but those of us of a certain age remember the Knitting Factory.
Yes.
We know about the annual benefit show at the Carnegie Hall
Hmm.
main auditorium. Little Kids Rock is one of those things he's on the board of. How far do you go back with Michael?
I first met him when the Knitting Factory was still open, and I had played a couple of shows there. And we sort of met each other just in that forum. But then when he opened the City Winery, he contacted me about being the first artist to play the first night, to play the opening night. And of course, I was excited and honored to do that. And then years later, when they closed that particular venue,
Hmm.
and moved to the new home, we also myself and my band played the closing night ceremony. And then we also played the opening night of the brand new space. So I guess I'm some sort of talisman of good luck for Michael Dorf or something. He seems to come back to me again and again and ask me to do these very sort of prestigious, nights at the place, and has always been a real supporter of my music, and also a friend too. He's also a real mensch. So it's been
Sure.
a long association.
Now, as I called out, 2023 gave us a new album from Joan Osborne, Nobody Owns You. Um, what's coming up for that? More touring in support of that, or are you the kind of artist that's already thinking of the next album?
Well, both of those things are true. I mean, I'm already thinking about the next record. I've already been in touch with Ben Rice, who produced Nobody Owns You. January. And also we have some tour dates in March, April, May, and possibly into June and July over in Europe to to continue to play the songs from this new record because it's only been out for a few months. So for me, it still feels new, and I'm still excited to play those songs for the fans because they haven't heard them before.
Hmm. Well, something fascinating to me about your career is how open you've been to collaborations with other artists. So I remember there was a Cracker album I really liked that you were on. You popped up on stage with Cheap Trick. You were doing the Grateful Dead kind of stuff before John Mayer had the idea to. You've always kind of said yes to people outside of the traditional genre that you're associated with. So have there been collaborations you actually turned down, or are you just the yes person with all that?
Well, sure. I mean, sometimes someone will reach out and ask me to do something. It doesn't work out with my schedule. Um, you know, but for the most part, I'm always just so thrilled when, for example, when the Funk Brothers
Mhm.
opportunity came along to be in that film, I had like most Americans, the Motown hits are sort of in my musical DNA. You sort of
Right.
it's like the air we breathe. They were everywhere. So I was very honored to be asked to do that, and very excited to be able to play with those guys and be part of that. And again, with the Grateful Dead, I wasn't necessarily a big Deadhead, but I knew many people who were, and I knew the impact, that they have had, on music and the incredible fan base that they have. And so when they were going back out again after Jerry Garcia passed away and looking for other people to fill out the lineup and reached out to me, I was like, yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like even though, for example, the Funk Brothers and the Dead, they're totally different on the face of it. I feel like it all comes from this wellspring of traditional American music. The Dead songs are based a lot on blues and bluegrass, and certainly they put their own psychedelic spin on that. But you can also look at what they've done as being a continuation of this sort of free jazz ideal of not knowing what you're going to play when you step out on the stage. And they've really
Mhm.
taken that to an extreme, and they got that from the free jazz players, people like Ornette Coleman. So, and then you can also say that the Funk Brothers, they were all accomplished jazz players, and they also were familiar with blues and gospel and all of that. So I feel like there is a common language. And when I was first coming up, I was singing a lot of blues, a lot of soul music, a lot of like Appalachian country music. So it all springs from the same source. And I feel like that allows me to collaborate with people in a way that we have this shared common language.
Then how did the Cheap Trick one come together? I know that was on the Sergeant Pepper Live residency they were doing in Vegas, but was that a, hey, you're in town, do you want to come up? Or did you have an existing relationship related to Cheap Trick?
I had never met them before. They just asked me to do it, and I guess knew my singing and thought that I would be right for it, and I said yes. So that's I'm so grateful that I've been welcomed into all these different situations by all these different incredible musicians, and I've been really really lucky in that way.
Sure. So, recapping what I've learned, there is new music coming, there's more touring coming. This is not your only exhibition anytime soon. You're creating all the time, you're open to collaborations. But in the case of this city winery exhibition, if your
Mm-hmm.
stuff sells, is that a bummer or is that a positive thing or both?
Oh no, it's a total positive thing. I made sure that if there were things that I couldn't let go of, I just didn't put them for sale. I can make prints of something and I've had them all scanned professionally so that I can sell a print of something, and I can keep the original for myself if I just can't let go of it. But there's other pieces that I've made that are, original, unique artworks and only one of a kind. And I'm happy to put those out in the world and see what happens. I mean, it's, having released a lot of recorded music,
Mhm.
that in a way, it's sort of the same thing. For me, it's like this thing that you have either created by yourself or in collaboration with other people, and you put it out into the world, and it wanders around in the world without you even knowing where it's going to end up, and impacting people in ways that you won't ever really understand. But as long as your intention, I think, is positive and full of love and light, then that's these little beings are traveling around the world, and connecting with people in that way. So I feel like the paintings are sort of the same thing.
Well, two quick questions for you, and then I'll let you go. And the first one, you're a unique person to speak to because you've done the selling millions of records thing, and then you rebounded into more of an artistic career where you do the things you want to do, regardless of the radio formats, etc. When did you kind of realize that you were going to be okay, that you didn't have to have a hit album, that you could do that passion-oriented career and still be fine for the long term?
I mean, I think because it took me a long time to get to the point where I had that big success. I had been working for years in clubs, starting out in New York City and then expanding all around the Northeast to, Syracuse and Rochester and DC and Philly and Boston and Burlington, Vermont, and, just playing
Mhm.
all around in the region. Like, I kind of knew that I could make a living doing it at that level. And it sort of gave me this confidence to then, sort of pick myself up after, the huge success, which of course I'm always going to be grateful for that. But, and there were wonderful things about it, but there were also things
Yeah.
that were difficult about it too. And then to sort of come crashing down from that, I knew that I wasn't only going to have to depend on somebody else picking me and choosing me and deciding I was going to be the next big thing in order to make music. I had, done this already on a scale where it was, my own thing, and I knew that could work. So I sort of went into it knowing that, and I never really had the ambition to be like a huge worldwide star. I mean, I looked at people like, for example, Tom Waits, who has this incredibly interesting career, does exactly the music that he wants to do. He doesn't have big hit songs, but he always has an audience that is interested in what he's going to do. And to me, that was the holy grail of having that. And I've ended up in this place where, I'm nothing like Tom Waits, but I've ended up in this place where I have that. I know that there are fans who have been with me for a while, and
Sure.
they're still interested in what I'm doing, and I can go out and, I'm not staying at the Ritz Carlton and having 5 tour buses, but, we make it work, and it's still very rewarding.
It's still fully artistic. Everyone's happy. Well, the last question, what's the last concert that you went to for fun? Not because you were going to come up and do a
Hmm.
song, not because you might be riding with them or a manager goes, hey, you should be at this, but you went, this is what I want to see. I'm not working.
It was seeing Devo in Portland, Oregon back in November. I don't remember the exact day, but they've just been on their sort of farewell tour, and I was a big fan of theirs growing up, so I got to see them live in Portland, Oregon.
I don't think anyone would have expected that answer, Jerry. Devo's still great, and Jerry has a new solo release coming soon. So farewell to Devo, but not farewell to all them being artistic still. So
Yeah.
yeah. But hey, thank you for your time. Looking forward to checking out this art show at City Winery. And glad to hear it's not the last one you'll be putting on anytime soon.
Yeah, and if people can't be there in person, they can follow the link on the City Winery site or on my site and look at the artwork online as well. Paltrocast.